Yeah, right. Coming in next episode. Scrolling through LinkedIn today, saw an article on U.S. Army's $178 billion fiscal year 23 budget protects modernization, cuts end strength. What does that mean? We're going to lower number of personnel in order to shift money to focus on the modernization projects that we have. The article lists out, kind of where it goes within that, and highlights how they're focused on quality. Okay, awesome. What does that mean for the soldier? Specifically to me, the non-commissioned officer or enlisted side of the house, because that's where the bulk of the work is happening. To me, that goes into human dimension and cognitive maneuver, right? Which been able to work with some amazing people from TradeOut G2 to private sector, wearables folks, some really intelligent people. I've had this conversation multiple times about how there's project managers for everything, from your boots to your helmet to your glasses, gloves, weapon system, what's the optic on it, the laser, etc. But what about the person in the brain? And I've always been interested in that, whether through exercise science, through how I can become better as a shooter, better as an instructor, researching and constantly being frustrated by interactions that I have with different people that don't take ownership or don't understand the importance of taking ownership of how they learn and how they adapt. I found an article in doing research called The Changing Face of Military Learning. It was written April 2017 by Say Schatz, David Fatua, Julian Stott, and Emily Wrights. And overarchingly, it was talking about how to change the how we learn as soldiers in order to achieve overmatch. And I'll put a link to it down there so you can read through it yourself. But it's fairly awesome. They talked about desired leader attributes. They named 6 of them. Ability to understand the environment and the effect of all instruments of national power. Awesome, because it's a very complex. Any operational environment is complex, and everyone that operates within it needs to know about it. Otherwise, we repeat past mistakes where we weren't focused on the operational environment. We were focused on mission focused. Everything is a nail, I'm the hammer. We break it, and then we try to figure out how to fix it afterwards. And then effective all instruments of national power, could utilize dime fill concept there and begin to break that down. Ability to anticipate and adapt to surprise and uncertainty. As a security forces advisor, you're talking about tolerance for ambiguity, right? Arguably, soldiers do that really well. I think we're just now learning the effects of doing that for an extended period of time on people and what that does to you mentally. We can talk more about that. Give me some feedback on that. What do you think about it? Ability to recognize change and lead transitions. People talk a lot about how well they do that, lead transitions or recognize change. I don't think they see it before they're not proactive to it. They're more reactive to those things. And we have to have a council of whoever, and we have to study it and get all this data, versus just being able to see it and forecast it, communicate about it, and lead that transition there. And then the others within the organization need to be able to follow with that, get the buy-in or buy-in, and be mentally malleable as they move forward, versus just working off learned experience. This is what I learned. It's always worked. It's not broke. Don't fix. Well, I'm forecasting something that needs to change or is going to change, And this is how we're going to transition to it. Ability to operate on intent through trust, empowerment, and understanding. Again, a lot of people say they do this well. Let's start with operating on intent. I need to make sure my intent is communicated properly. And understand if I gave someone intent and expect a result, it isn't going to be exactly how I saw it in my head. That's where trust, empowerment, and understanding come in. I have to be able to do those three things. If I give intent, I have to be able to trust, I have to be able to empower, and I have to be able to understand what it is they're bringing me that they worked on and how that can work versus how it won't. Number 5, the ability to make ethical decisions based on the shared values of the profession of arms. Again, profession, right? I'm receiving additional training on how to do this job or profession. That's what makes it so. Ability to make ethical decisions. Again, everyone coming from a broad spectrum of experience, defining ethics, being able to approach and correct people on ethical failures and getting them in the right direction versus watching them do it and then crushing them later after you've built the list. Ability to think critically and strategically in applying joint warfighting principles and concepts at joint operations. What is critical thinking? What is strategic thinking? What do you think? And is that something we need to cover in more detail? And then how do we work jointly? Because that is incredibly important. If GWAT highlighted anything, it's that. Working together with other entities, gym partners, etc. So now that we know that, those are the attributes we want to get to. How do we learn? How do we instruct, train, assess going forward? The article does a really good job of breaking it all down. Key highlights to me would be personnel should be expected to continuously learn, adapt, and grow across their entire career. There isn't a point where that stops, right? And again, the key word there, expected. How do you do that? You do that through assessment. And then evaluation of that performance, and I tell you where you are. Due to the fact that the competencies we need to have are very broad. There's a lot. We require higher levels of nuanced skill, critical thinking, anticipation, empathy, getting back to that cognitive maneuver thing. And we've spent a long time telling people what to think. And arguably, we need to start teaching people how to think. In my experience, that's what I would offer there. How do you solve this problem? I have this problem. How do you think it can be solved? And then coaching, giving new information within that, because they have some type of learned experience within it. Or if they're completely ignorant to it, then you can assess it. Too often, we just, boom, attack the problem with our own solution. They learned nothing except, if I have a problem, let me come to you and you'll fix it for me. And then we need to be able to do it quickly or with velocity, having multiple mechanisms. So 5 enabling conditions the article lays out in order to do this is cultivating ubiquitous learner-centric technology-enabled instruction. So technology-enabled instruction that's available anywhere at any time. That's what ubiquitous is. Build upon the foundations of data-driven learning. Very important. Too often we try to make changes just based off an idea with no data behind it. Was it failing in the first place? Does this work to fix it? But be able to do that fairly quickly and be able to forecast that. The longer you spend on it, the longer someone's spending time not knowing if they're headed in the right direction. Foster a learning culture at the organizational level. As the leaders, again, in the operational environment, we've spent so long focused on the institutional. That's where you go to learn. You come back to the operational. You are assessed on your ability to do said things. You're going to spend some time training in there and learning in there, but not much. If you are, it's all self-development. We need the hybrid, the blend, right? It's kind of what the article gets into. Being able to blend that. Encourage and empower social learning. Here's the problem, and the group of people learn how to solve it, present solutions. You talk about it, discuss it, and figure out that best way, right? Marketplace of ideas, if you will. Draw upon deliberate practices and the evidence-based body of knowledge from learning science. So reach back to articles such as this, doctrinal references, lessons learned, etc., from people that are well educated in how to do it versus just trying to do it on your own. It's okay not to know or have the answer. Someone does. So learner-driven options, the military's done a lot with that because you're able to take ownership of your own development in that. Can reinforce laziness in some ways because, many people want to just click through or etc. Blending of learning activities and operations. So I'm training, but I'm learning something in it. If I'm building that training, what am I giving them to make decisions on that's going to force learning and then assessing that? The paradox of white space, why that's important. I don't have to jam pack a calendar to show that I'm learning something. Arguably, you're not going to get to it all. It's BS. Actually say what you're doing, and if it's not full, be able to communicate exactly what's happening within those times. See, this is preparation. This is, recovery. This is certifying instructors, et cetera, et cetera. Utilize the 8-step training model to your advantage. That can fill up white space the same way. Live virtual constructive modeling and simulation. A lot of people don't tap into those assets, and they exist. And then one of the coolest things within this was building upon the foundations of data-driven learning. So without measurement, we cannot be agile. We lose efficiency with reinforcing known principles to advance personnel, and we lose effectiveness by pushing unprepared individuals ahead. So where are my people? Do I need to cover this? Or can I just assess and then drive forward with new information? We get lost in that. We have to follow this plan step by step and go through all these things. So we're essentially frustrating the people that already know it and keeping them stuck where they're at, and then pushing people that don't know forward because we're not giving the data and showing them where they are. It's okay. Please tell me if I'm not ready. Or if you have pushed me ahead and I am failing, what do I need to learn within this? So, and then how do we track all this? The massive human performance data. It references Douglas Hubbard in his book on how to measure anything. He said, which was written in 2014, the best way to spend 1% of a budget was to use it to optimize the other 99%. Wow, okay. In managing personnel, we use only a narrow slice of information about service members, and as a result, we cannot optimize assignment, training, development, or utilization of the available talent pool. In short, we have a one-size-fits-all model of production in which people are not seen as uniquely valuable so much as almost interchangeable inputs into an industrial machine. And that was Brad Carson, acting Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness, in a 2015 memo that was published in the Military Times. Arguably not wrong. You see a lot of frustration with people. I'm going here to do this job. What the heck, man? I've got XYZ certifications. We're not tapping into those things because it's a numbers-based system. How can performance sensing technologies help us out? I've worked a lot with that in measurable devices because ultimately, I mean, I can be as smart as you want me to be, but if I'm physically inept, just my heart rate is going to slow my brain down to a point where I can't function properly. We can get into that with new optics and weapon systems and IVAS and different things that are coming out, and people are freaked out by them because blue screen of death, and what is this going to do to the person's brain? Well, we don't know yet, but those things can probably be broken down. We'll get into that later, but measuring yourself is important. If you wear your Apple Watch or Garmin or whatever with your heart rate sensor and O2 and VO2 max and all that stuff, are you just using it as a measuring tool, or are you using it to analyze performance and improve? But read through this. Read through this article. It's pretty amazing. It kind of gives you a way forward. And I'd love to hear back from you on your opinion on it, and how we can have that discussion and work on some practices towards reinforcing how we learn, instruct, train, both in and outside of the military. Appreciate you joining me on this, and we'll see you next time.